Hello everyone, and welcome to the Coed Cover2 defense presentation. The important things to know about the Cover2 defense is that it is very popular in our league. Most teams use some sort of style or variation of it. Because it's so popular, most of the QBs in the league have played against it many times and have learned how to beat it. However, it is so flexible that teams continue to try new things with it and have varying amounts of success. Sometimes it can shut people down completely. Other times it can give up 50+ points a game. The Cover2 defense has weaknesses in it, but the idea behind it is the bend but don't break philosophy. Keep the receivers in front of you and make the other team march down the field without giving up anything long. The base play puts 4 defenders on the front line, followed by a single middle linebacker and then 2 safeties. The Cover2 is a zone defense, meaning instead of being assigned a specific person to cover, defenders are asked to cover areas of the field, or use their zones to identify which receiver they need to cover for the duration of the play. When possible, we still want to try to have favorable gender matchups, boys covering boys, girls covering girls. But with zone, that becomes tricky, so cover your area of the field first and foremost against either gender, and then try to shade towards your gender. The base formation has 2 standard alignments, vertical alignment and horizontal alignment. For vertical alignment, we want the whole front line of defenders about 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, ready to backpedal immediately at the snap. Standing too far back pre-snap telegraphs to the quarterback not only that there is open space in front of you, but they'll know also where your approximate zone is, and they can design routes around you. The middle linebacker aligns about 5 to 10 yards from the line of scrimmage, depending on down and distance or tendencies of the offense. Sometimes the middle linebacker might drop back and act as a third safety, and others he will step up and be another linebacker. The safeties align 10 to 15 yards, again depending on down and distance, and should be ready to backpedal at the snap to ensure no one gets behind them. However, the safeties can't play too far back because they need to cover the space behind the linebackers. Horizontal alignment will depend largely on the opposing offense's formation, but typically the cornerbacks will align 5 to 7 yards from the sidelines, the girl linebackers will align 5 to 7 yards from the center, the guy middle linebacker will align directly over the center, and the safeties will split the guy wideout and guy slot receiver on their respective sides. Here's a simple breakdown of how the alignment should look. Cornerbacks on the outside using the sidelines as a bracket to the wide receiver. The girl linebackers are to the inside of the slot receivers, but not pinched down on the center. The middle linebackers directly over top of the center, and the safeties have split the guy wideouts and the guy slot receivers on their respective sides. Please note that this is what it looks like against a balanced offense, and sometimes teams will stack receivers to one side or the other. When this happens, our alignment needs to shift in that direction. The zones of our Cover2 defense are as follows. The cornerbacks and middle linebacker are all aligned 5 to 10 yards from the line of scrimmage, but at the snap they will drop back as far as needed, generally 10 to 20 yards max. The cornerbacks key the wideouts on the outside first, but progressively draw inside to help against the slot or crossing routes from the other side. The middle linebacker reads the center on every play to determine what sides are strong and weak, and they will support the strong side to maintain the defender to receiver balance ratio. The girl linebackers are about 5 to 7 yards from the center, and they need to make a defensive read on the center as well. Generally, if the center is coming their direction, they will cover the center. If the center goes the other way, they will cover the shortest route on their side of the field. The safeties have a very tough job in this defense as they split the deep part of the field into halves, and each are responsible for not letting any receivers pass them. This defense will encourage teams to try to throw deep, and that will give our safeties opportunities to make interceptions if they can cover enough ground. If they can't or are caught out of position, the play could result in a rather easy touchdown. While all the linebackers need to key the center to determine their coverages, the truth is that everyone should be paying attention to the balance of the play. If you draw a line down the center of the field, there is a 3 defender to 3 receiver ratio on both sides of the ball. The person that generally changes this balance is the center. If they go right, the right side becomes the strong side because it has 4 receivers to the left's 3. On the flip side, if the center goes left, the left side becomes the strong side because it has 4 receivers to the right's 3. The middle linebacker will read what the center does and will support whichever side they go, ensuring a balanced 4 to 4 ratio. When the center goes to a side, the girl linebacker on that side will cover the center, and the middle linebacker will shift their coverage to the guy slot receiver. However, on the weak side of the play, the side the center didn't go, the girl linebacker will cover whatever is the shortest route on their side, regardless if it's a guy or a girl receiver. While we will use the center as the key to know which side of the play is strong versus weak, it should be noted that it can be easily deceptive. If the center goes right and the right slot receiver goes left, the strong side of the play will in fact be the left side, as after a second there will be 4 receivers on that side. Everyone needs to do their best to identify in the first few seconds of a play what sides are strong and weak, and then react accordingly. The idea behind zone defense is to guard areas of the field instead of being assigned specific people. For this example, we're only going to look at one half of the field. As you can see, the defenders are assigned an area to cover, but it should be noted that they do go outside of those areas in order to cover receivers once receivers have crossed through them. In the video, you'll see 3 different executions of zone defense. The defenders are covering people as they enter their zone and matching up with them 1-to-1. You don't want to get caught dancing in place with nobody around you. We call this covering ghosts. The first 3 examples are what it might look like on the weak side of the play. The 4th example is what it might look like on the strong side of the play when the center and middle linebacker become involved. Cornerbacks need to know that if the safety is already covering someone deep on their side, they have to drop back with the second deepest person on their side so the receiver doesn't find a soft spot between the front line of defenders and the safeties. They also need to know that if they are on the weak side of a play, they may have to stick with a wideout all the way down the field or until a safety calls them off. The strength of the Cover2 is that it can confuse the opposing QB, especially since everyone executes defense differently. Sometimes the QB will bank on a spot on the field being open, and out of nowhere a defender will appear and make the play. Zone defenses are also generally less physically demanding than man-to-man defense, which keeps players more refreshed and helps neutralize the difference in some physical aspects between receivers and defenders. It also is generally good against short yardage situation, as there are a lot of defenders close to the line of scrimmage, making finding open receivers more difficult. And lastly, the Cover2 defense is very flexible and can be quickly altered on the fly to create different packages to confuse the opposing QB with. The weakness of the Cover2 is that there are gaps in the defense. There are areas of the field where defenders simply won't be, and if a receiver gets that space before a defender recognizes their route, the pass won't even be contested. The defense is also not strong versus overloads. An overload is when a bunch of receivers stack on one side of the formation. The reaction to this calls for the defense to shift towards the overload, but the assignments become much more difficult to see. Floods are the main problem with zone defenses in general. A flood is when multiple receivers run to one area of the field and the defender in that area doesn't get enough support. The result is one defender against 2, 3, or even 4 receivers. This can happen rather easily if defensive players get confused about who they are supposed to cover. And with 7 receivers and defenders all running around on the field, 14 people total, this happens commonly. The thing you really want to avoid most in this defense is what we call covering ghosts. By that, we mean looking for someone to enter your zone, not finding anyone, and bouncing around in the same space when there's no one there for you to cover. At that point, you're just a wasted body. Getting caught with no receiver in your zone will happen to everyone, so don't be alarmed if it happens to you. If it does, simply look around and see if you can find an open receiver that needs covering. Double team another receiver. Glance at where the QB is looking and try to position yourself in that area. The key is to do something. Pretty much any action is better than inaction in this scenario. To recap, this is a 4-1-2 defense and we're still maintaining our inside alignment. We will use the center to commonly identify which sides of the play are strong and weak, but we know that if the center crosses with someone, the balance of the play can quickly change. The middle linebacker will often ensure the balance of the defender-to-receiver ratio, but everyone will need to know what's happening and react accordingly. The girl linebackers will cover inside to outside, keen on the center if they come their way, and otherwise taking the shortest route on their side. The cornerbacks will cover outside to inside, covering the second most deep receiver on their side of the field. The safeties will cover whoever is deepest on their side of the field and won't let anyone behind them. This will ensure the bend but don't break philosophy. The more plays an offense has to make, the more opportunities our defense has to make a play. And lastly, don't cover ghosts. Find someone to cover on every play. Thank you for watching the Coed Cover2 defense presentation. Please email, text, or Facebook me with any questions you have.